Richard, such a pleasure to have you back on
Thank
Mindful
you.
Matters. It's so lovely to have you here. I just look so much forward to these little chats. I enjoy these. It's not just it's not just getting the content out there. It's so nice to just have this chat with you. So very nice to see you. And
Brilliant.
of
Me
course,
too.
quick presentation. Uh, Richard, coach of coaches, amazing coach, and a fantastic, fantastic person. And even if you blink all that much, allow yourself just to do take all of that in. Richard, you're an amazing partner here on the podcast, and I just love having these chats with you. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Oresztesz. That's very kind, and I will sit with that a moment and let that go in. And the thing is, someone who thinks like that and can see the best in the other person is only able to do that because they've taken time to develop those qualities in themselves, which is why it's an absolute joy to share this with you, because you are one of the finest hypnotists I know, and I think your warmth, your friendliness, your compassion, as well as your experience of being able to do and bring people together, I think is unsurpassed. So it's wonderful to be here. And look, I'm really looking forward to diving in today. This is like however good my week is, this is like a little mini Christmas every week. So really happy to be here.
Wonderful, wonderful. It seems like we both get quite a bit of enjoyment out of sharing these ideas
Mhm.
and talking about the things that we have found. I honestly found I loved it. I remember back like 14 years ago, when I started out with hypnosis, and basically using the most powerful tools. I even hesitate to only call it hypnosis because it has been so much more. Um, but I remember that every single time I had just like a fantastic breakthrough. I was conducting a session and I would figure out,
Mhm.
okay, well, you know what? This problem, it's related to that. And that's kind of the childhood that kind of led to this directly. And then we fixed things. I was so excited. Just coming out of these sessions, I would be sharing these with my wife. And and she was appreciative enough and kind enough to listen to those. But I was just so excited, just sharing
Mhm.
the discoveries of how the mind works and be
Mhm.
amazed by the power of the mind for the better. It might sound
Mhm.
like, I found many times, how one thing leads to another that talks about, all the terrible things that happen. No, I was excited about being able to change something
Mhm.
which then caused the change in the present, in the very
Yeah.
moment, right in front of my eyes. And that is
Mhm.
just so exciting. I love to do that, and I love to share these learnings with our listeners. And I hope we also get to inspire you just a little bit, and remember that healing and growth is also within you. Yes, you listening, and you can have just so much more growth and so much more exploited potential.
Mhm. Beautiful, Oresztesz. I couldn't agree more. I've had that. I've been very privileged over the years that I have a number of times when I discover something new or a new way of helping people or a new way of breakthrough for myself, and it's like Christmas again, and it's just like the best. It's like an even better Christmas ever. It's like forgetting that Santa Claus doesn't exist, and now he's turning up, and you know. And it's beautiful because people will need different strategies, and I think that's one of the things we learn over time, that there is a strategy, there are ways to help people, and and it's about finding, and you never know. It's the beauty, because you'll never know exactly um, the moment, the actual precise combination that's going to open things. Just have them wide open, but it's there. And one of the things I was discussing last night with some students and peers was this: that when you have a feedback mechanism where you can actually start to get excited, even when you notice some of those problems that you've had, if you can start to see them and observe them as a pattern, without getting too stuck in it, if you can actually start to get a bit of distance, then you can start getting excited about how you can change that, how you can look at it differently, how you can experience it differently. And once you realize inside yourself you have that power, your life, your sense of personal freedom just continues to increase. And that's the beauty and joy, I think, part of the beauty and joy that I share as well in the kind of the work that you're talking about, Oresztesz.
Absolutely, absolutely. Um, and and I think today it would be a nice idea just to quickly wrap up the previous
Mhm.
series that we have been exploring to finish off with some of the effects that also can affect our ways in which we interact with
Mhm.
people.
Yep,
So it's only some of the many ways, many fallacies that our mind is prone to. Even though it is a fantastic, and extremely powerful tool, it can
yep,
still have some heuristics that make it work in a certain way that is
mhm.
right many times, and it's right in some of the circumstances. And when it's right, it
Sure.
is very beneficial and powerful. But we also want to be aware of their shortcomings of some of these heuristics, some of these natural ways in which our brain works. And then we are also going to begin presenting a very interesting tool that can be a very powerful way for you to start taking charge of your emotions, start taking charge of your emotional state, and especially a way to get out of negative states and
Yes.
really begin to take action. So watch out for that. But first, let's finish up with for example, the Hawthorne effect that we have mentioned.
Yeah, sure. Well, look, that's good. In fact, the Hawthorne effect, I did a hypnosis course about 6 years ago now, and I talked about this on there because there were not people talking about it in relation to hypnosis at the time. But although it's been you know, it's like many things in psychology. It's been people look at the original study again. It's called Hawthorne because of the area and the study that was originally done in, but it just refers to the sort of general tendency that we have to alter our behavior in response to our awareness of being observed. In other words, we might modify an aspect of our behavior in response to being observed, or even if we think even if we think we're being observed. And and that can be both a useful thing in terms of kind of quite motivational, like in terms of positive praise or doing well or living up to someone's expectations.
Mm-hmm.
But there are kind of other kind of sort of aspects to it as well. But I think this has a great beneficial. It has the it opens up the possibility for a lot of positive
Mm-hmm.
behaviors, but it also helps explain, other phenomena. Like it helps create the context for stage hypnosis because there's a certain expectation that is created in that, and people like to, when that expectancy is enhanced, they want to live up to the person, the authority figure who is there. So it can be a very, very beneficial thing that you can actually use to bring to bear to be able to create a supportive environment for other people, like the kindly beneficial teacher or the kindly wise parent.
Yes, absolutely. And I believe there is a very important point here where we, of course, we want to bring these effects and highlight the practical aspects of these. Like,
Mhm.
how can you actually use this information in your daily life? Now, one of the things that I believe has a very important impact on the practical aspect of discovering the Hawthorne effect, the effect of being observed, aside from just understanding that it's present, as researchers have been aware of this for a long time, and that's why double, sometimes even triple blind studies
Mhm.
are required to get as close to an unbiased research results as it is possible.
Yes.
It's very important to understand that the effect of being observed, as you say, Richard, it can be very powerful, very positive. Now, I think one of the most important aspects of this is understanding that there is actually a bell curve of, of feeling higher amounts of pressure. The bell curve, which would be here, would be the amount of pressure increasing constantly. It's just same amount of idea. The pressure can be external pressure, expectations. It can be your own internal expectations, higher levels of demand, higher perceived levels of danger, of things that can happen. So you would be increasing the amount of pressure, and here you would be increasing the output created by the human being, in this case, either of us or any of you. And there seems to be a bell curve distribution where there is a beginning of the more pressure you have that gets you out of zero. When you don't care about something, you're not going to generate any output. And the more the pressure increases, the more your output will increase. Now, because the output will increase with increased pressure, some people forget that higher levels of pressure, it doesn't happen. It's not the same thing that happens at every point on the curve. The same extra amount of pressure here can get you out of nothing to something. An additional amount of extra pressure can get from something to something much more. The same amount of pressure can put you all the way up to the top of your output. Add another bunch of pressure on top of your best that you can do, and it actually begins to generate anxiety. You begin to judge yourself. You begin to spend more time thinking about the consequences, possibly being afraid, and that can generate a lower output. The same additional amount of pressure. Add some more, and you might actually completely block your ability to engage with something.
Sure.
So when we notice that the Hawthorne effect is adding pressure, we really need to recognize where we are in terms of our own internal experience. If more pressure is going to generate more engagement, is it inspiring? Is it getting me to want to do better? Is there more to do with my current state? Because I might just be a beginner at something, and my best is objectively not so great, but it's my best. So that's what I need to do, and that's where I have to be happy with. And so considering this is very important in thinking about the Hawthorne effect and noticing how much you can actually make sure that it's beneficial, and when is a good time to let go of expectations, sometimes even recognize that it might just be perceived expectations of others.
Yeah. I think that's really, I think what you said there about the perceived expectations right at the end was, it's great, this idea of the bell curve, because look, there are a couple of practical things you can do. One exactly related to your perceived expectations, which is to develop a more mindful approach. What we talked about a little bit last time, mind sight, so you can become aware of the thoughts and feelings and pictures that you make in your mind, and the way that those are triggered, the way that they come up. A second thing that you can do with this, which is really, really helpful, which I think would be the way that at least I perceive it in relation to the bell curve you talked about, is to develop a real attitude of playfulness. And probably an easy way I could explain this is, when I've been writing blogs or emails or enjoying doing marketing, it's not really, I enjoy it when it's not really marketing. It's enjoyable when it's a playful, creative process where I share discussions or engage in discussions with other people. In the past, when it was trying to do that, then the pressure will be going up and up of what that would be like, what how it might be perceived, what other people might say, whether they might like it. And then once all those judgments come to bear, then what happens is it takes another way to put it is it takes a lot more energy to do that. And so if you can develop this attitude of playfulness or just a little bit of mindfulness, you can achieve a lot, like you say, with the little bit of energy, the little bit of power that's needed at the beginning to start to move things up enough to be able to create a little bit of the flow state, but not so much that you are concerned really about the overall result. And I'm sure that's something we can talk about a bit more in future. But when you can engage with that process playfully, just a little bit more mindfully, you can achieve wonderful things. And exactly like you say, then you can just put those little bits of energy in, start to move up. And you can leverage the fact that actually when you're accountable to, or you can even perceived accountability to some peers or some groups or some other people for whom you value helping them and you value their opinions, then it can be a very, very positive thing.
Absolutely. And just again, to make this a little bit practical, would you mind being my avatar for a very quick exercise? It's
Of
going to take a
course.
few moments, and I would like any listener who is not operating any kind of machinery right now, where where all of your attention can be with us. Um, just close your eyes for a moment, Richard, and allow your attention to go inside.
Mhm.
And as Richard, you can do this also with your eyes open when you're as trained as he is, and have fantastic imagery just on command. And as you do, allow your attention to go to one of your projects, something that is ongoing in your life. Ongoing in the sense that you've either been thinking about it or you have started to engage with it. And I would like to invite you to consider where you find yourself on your internal curve in terms of pressure and output. Are you at the beginning? Little motivation, no real connection to the project? Are you at a place where you're doing some things, but you could use some more weight to the project and feel like you could, oh, yeah, that would be nice to do more? Are you exactly on top of your hill and just feel like everything is in a perfect flow? You feel like you're putting things out there, moving forward? Are you by any chance a little bit over the top where it begins to feel like there is too much pressure? Are you all the way at the end where you might be completely blocked from taking action, scrambling around, spending more time thinking than acting? Take a moment to reflect on where you are and consider, according to this information, where you are on your curve, what would be your best way to get closer to where you want to be? Is it focusing more on the good things you want out of this project? Is it letting go of some of the things that make you feel pressured, even though you know they are important, by realizing that letting go of some of their weight actually frees you up to take more action instead of freezing you up? And allow your mind to test drive the new amount of energy, the different amount of energy, and notice how it feels. To either have less pressure and feel more free, or have just more motivation to feel like you can get closer to more action. And enjoy that for a moment, and when you're ready, just find your way back to continue with your day.
Very nice. Well, I had a couple of things, well, three things I wanted to say. One was about letting go. Two is I think it's about the pressure, and three maybe about the way that I've kind of started to work. But it all kind of melded together there. So as I was imagining what I was doing at the moment, I've just been optimizing my workflow for three projects actually I'm doing. So I was thinking about one of them, and it's
Smart.
going. It's such a
By the way,
transformative thing at the moment.
I'm sorry for interrupting you, but whenever you do, it's a great idea to focus on one thing. I love your
Oh,
consciousness.
okay, fine,
Just
fantastic.
not trying to fix.
It's one thing. It is one thing. It's just got three little aspects to it. But I'll just real quickly, as I realised that for this particular one project, it was going up, and because they're all kind of related in the workflow that I'm using. As it was going up, what was amazing was I could see the and feel the pressure that was there. It's interesting now as I'm feeling it's not there. So I was feeling it and I imagined the bell curve, and then I let it go down a little bit. So it was exciting. So it went down to the level of nice excitement, the kind of excitement where I feel motivated and inspired, but it's enjoyable. It doesn't require any extra energy. And I realized that I have done this before a little bit, and so you were very wisely giving a suggestion to pay attention and letting go of some of the heaviness, and that helped. That also helped. So as it came down, I released a little bit of the heaviness, which I can feel the benefit of now. And I just so when I think of that particular project, I'm much lighter now. The funny thing is, I did something like this at the weekend, very unconsciously. I was going out with Jacob for the park run. So we joined, it was actually about 167 people this weekend. So we didn't really want to go. We'd just woken up. It was a dark morning. It was raining. We got up. As I was about to leave, I realized I didn't think the bell curve, but I could see that my mind was a little bit busy up here. So I let go. I decided to just let go of the heaviness once. And I went out, and as I was running around, it felt like I was observing my body. My mind was clearer, and I got my best time. And so it's really nice to see that now, because the way that you took me through that there, Oresztesz, just even conceptualizing it, like, is it up here or bringing it down? I could picture it in my mind. I could feel it coming down or coming up. So that might be very useful to listeners as well. So and the direct benefit is, as I'm thinking back to my the one particular project at the moment, there's a stillness inside, a peacefulness. So I really, really appreciate you. What a wonderful process.
Beautiful, beautiful. I love it. Thank you. Thank you for sharing the internal experience, because I hope our listeners are getting the same kind of I hope you're getting the same kind of effect, where you get to find your right kind of energy. I have a sense that most of the time, for most people, it has more to do with letting go of the heaviness than
Agreed.
than amping up the amount of pressure they need. I think we have plenty of pressures from the outside world, expectations. We do want nice things for ourselves. So sometimes, interestingly, reducing pressure actually gets higher benefits, emotional engagement, and better results.
Agreed. I just one extra comment on that. I think it's a really powerful insight to take a moment on, because I think that firstly, a lot of the problems that we have are generated, they become solidified in our mind as concepts and ideas that we've ruminated on, shall we say, perhaps from expectations for others, perhaps from the looking glass effect, perhaps from the reverse of the Hawthorne effect. But one of the approaches which is related to this, to letting go of the heaviness, is to let go of wanting to control, or wanting to change the outcome, or wanting to be further along. So you can either conceptualize it as a kind of heaviness, like I did that, which worked very well, But another comparable way that you can do it is to let go of the wanting to control it, because all of that causes a kind of heaviness. And exactly as you say, Oresztesz, we all have things that we have to get done. It's not as though we're out of bed, we're changed, we are functional human beings in the world. We are motivated, we have natural motivation. The question is not so much about forcing it, it's about letting go of the heaviness and the trying to control it or for it to be a particular way. So I think that's a wonderful insight that you've alighted upon there.
Fantastic, fantastic. And thank you for adding this. And again, I hope it not only helps you feel better in this particular example, but also you will remember to do this for any other project. Whenever you feel overwhelmed, it might be a good moment to pause and notice if the amount of pressure, allowing the wrong things to float in your mind, is it adding actually? Is it adding something positive to what you're doing? Again, sometimes it feels a little too hard to control, so I'm not going to say, if you're struggling with some strong emotional situations, that you should just clear your mind and just do it. It's never all that easy, but having this awareness and doing your best to at least push those things a little bit further to the distance and focus on the things that are in your hands to change, that can be a very powerful strategy. And
Agreed.
and because I do not want to continue owing our listeners, let's jump at the last effect that we have been exploring, the Proteus effects, because I feel like, again, we might end up not even taking a look at the next theme, which I do want to share because it is so awesome. So let's take a look at the Proteus effect. It seems like there is a very powerful effect of it's been observed, I believe, in video games, that
Yes.
that when you are projecting an avatar, when you are playing as a character, sometimes customizable, sometimes you only have a few options to choose, it has a very high tendency to send you the idea, the expectation of behaving in a certain way that you think
Yes.
that this avatar would behave naturally.
Mm.
And I don't know how related that is, but it also reminds me of the Stanford Prison experiment, where
Sure.
again, actually role playing a certain
Yep.
character was creating extremely powerful alterations in the behavior of some of the people, in a way that they actually afterwards they would never have predicted that kind of behavior, and
Mhm.
afterwards they kind of weren't really able to relate to their own behavior in that situation, but that's what they did.
Yep. Absolutely. Absolutely. And the more extreme version of that, of course, is in, say, the concentration camps and the kind of narratives of people like Rudolf Höss, who was a commandant of Auschwitz. And but people, the point is that people can step into roles very, very quickly. The Proteus effect just shows, even with an avatar, even with a symbol of your identity, we can step into that. Now, as long as we choose mindfully, this can be very, very useful. I have a friend who has a wonderful Twitter account, and next to his name, he has a tiny emoji of a wizard. And that emoji looks wonderful. It's benign, and that really, really suits him. He has a beard. He's very wise. He's
Uh-huh.
very thoughtful and contemplative. So I think it's really, really useful. And you and I have spoken before about the importance of the identities that we choose, or that it is, one should always be careful in the way that you're discussing things with anyone, really, but particularly clients, to make sure that, or children or friends, to make sure that we talk about really behaviors or aspirational identities. And this tendency for people to be affected by their digital representations, like you say, and maybe their avatars or on a particular social media profile, I think people probably notice that they may notice at some level that there's a change, but it might be quite unconscious for them. So it's just to, again, just to be aware that we do have the, with an element of mindfulness, we can choose these identities. All of us have multiple kind of identities because we have different roles in our life. And it's just to be aware of that, when we're doing that. The evidence is quite good. You mentioned about games, where people are already pro-social. Of course, taking those avatars and doing that can add a whole variety of creativeness to them. It's not going to sort of necessarily translate into behaviours, but it can affect a sense of identity, and there can, under some circumstances, be behavior shifts, exactly like you mentioned in the Stanford prison experiment.
One other idea that comes to mind when we're exploring this is it's really striking the amount of times that I have had clients in my office that tell me that identities they are stuck in has been drilled into them for the longest time. And sometimes it can just come from kindness, like how parents might decide to choose to call one of their kids the chubby one or the clumsy one.
Yep.
And then just because our mind gets used to this, the nickname sticks, then becomes part of the identity.
Agreed.
And it's to a certain degree, when it's something negative like this, I'm not saying that's the only thing keeping them stuck there. It might, for some people, actually be their propulsor to just go against it and say, I'm not going to be this way. But it is really interesting. I have, for example, three. I have seen two, but I think that there is a third sister. Three gorgeous ladies, very pretty, and they have been all their life. Their father consciously, he told them later, he consciously always called them thin and pretty, all their lives. And it's okay. How do I say this? But it's not it's not something that you can decide on your own, and it's not something that you will know from just any child. If you make that decision, they really take good care of themselves, and their health is good as a result, and it's just a very nice thing just to understand positive identity, what it can do, and positive projection, and how a negative one might slow down your ability to become how you want to be. So I would like to invite you to, if you have any of these lingering around, give them a nice little hug, recognize if they stem from kindness, and just let them go. Allow them to just float away in the distance and recognize who you are in the present and who you choose to be. And if you like that identity, of course, if it's one of the positive ones, embrace it and enjoy it making you even more of a better version of yourself.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, amen to that, Oresztesz. And I think I'm also thinking, as I'm allowing that to happen for myself, as I'm enjoying your wonderful words, I'm thinking it'll be a very good idea for us to, at some point, to talk about the fixed mindset, the growth mindset, and the difference between having a kind of a fixed identity, one that kind of revolves around process and behavior. Because you're right, people get it. It's very, very interesting. I mean, I can most of the people who I can see who have succeeded in different areas have simply adopted the trait of their parents. Not all the case, but at least in the sort of the peer groups I've had, there'll be very few who are consciously aware of this. If the mum or dad was a doctor, they become a doctor. If the mum or dad was a teacher, they've become a teacher. Okay, and I'm not saying in all cases. Some of them, their parents were millionaires. Guess what they've become? All right. Some of them, their dads had, were very aggressive kind of business people early on. Very. Do you know what? They have those exact same traits. So, and people can overcome these. There are also many, many positive sides to that as well. But it's useful to, I think it's the ideal place really, I think, is when you can have an awareness of that, so you have choice, so that you can take that and you can use that. Because as you say, there will be folk who have perhaps not had the best role models for perhaps health, or the best suggestions around that. And they can change. It may just take a little bit of time, and you may just want a little bit of help with that.
Absolutely. And do not stretch this episode way too further. I believe we'll just keep these as promises for the future. We will definitely come back to these ideas because they are not only fascinating to listen to, but they're very practical and very useful to
Mm.
to use in our daily lives. And Richard, I would just like to thank you for yet another awesome time. I just have so much fun in these conversations. Where can people find you?
Well, in the YouTube comment, or just above the YouTube comments below, if you look in the YouTube notes here, follow me on Twitter or sign up for my daily emails, and I will send you something each day to keep you inspired and keep you on track. And Oresztesz, what's the best way for people to stay in contact with you, my friend?
You can visit lessanxietytoday.com or continue just to check out all the other videos here on Less Anxiety Today YouTube channel. There is also a Less Anxiety Today Facebook page where you will find the videos and some other inspiring posts. Thank you very much for listening. I hope you have something fun and nice that you can reflect on and take away with you. That's going to be very useful. And I hope to see you next week. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening. Take care.